Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Poli-Psych News Analyst Digest, gleaned from the second week of July 2020. I'm Cindy, and I'm going to be taking a look at some of the noteworthy events that have occurred this past week, and I'm beginning this news digest with a couple of clips from the Poli-Psych team that we recorded on Thursday, July 9th, regarding the website STD, Stop the Donald, and also a book filled with negative opinions on Donald Trump, written by his niece, Mary Trump. The STD website is selling signs and t-shirts and buttons, not to promote any candidate, Biden or other, but rather STD stands for Stop the Donald. And this political campaign is being played by the Democrats as, from what we've been saying for months, not who is a good candidate to assume the presidency, but who can be the anti-Trump and beat Donald Trump. So Ken, I know this was something that you came across, if you might want to comment on this.
Yeah, I think when I say the generic Democrat position is really primarily, in one way to look at it, is anti-Trump. It's not really pasted onto any candidate, and it's what permits the propping up of somebody who's obviously not quite right for the job, putting it politely, Joe Biden at this point, and yet being able to ignore that completely because the anti or the negative emotional vector is really driving this theory, and it's just a theory, but that really what President Trump will be running against is the anti-Trump, and that construct is basically a complex of complaints and observations that are mostly crafted by the media, amplified by the media, and amplified in the left's and center Democrat circles. When you get on social media, you can see these things occurring. Groups that just really all they do is just sort of massage each other's anti-Trump sentiment. And if you fall into one of these groups and happen to make a comment, you'll find a really interesting reaction. It'll be a viscerally negative. It's almost like a pack of wolves surrounding. Now, I know that trollery is common on both sides, but it seems to have a different character to it. And I know that this is a very strong motivating thing, and it may be the main strategy being used by the Obama holder shadow government, is to make the anti-Trump vector so strong that it outweighs all logical thought and strategy, and it might work. This is the one thing I'm worried about, is that in the final analysis, if you look at the demographic and the swing voters, if enough of them team up with this vector going, and maybe Joe Biden won't be the candidate, but it seems like they could put a French poodle in there, and that the dog would win. So I don't know. What do you think, Don?
Yeah, I'm not again concerned about the left. I think they are almost nonsensical and have their own echo chamber.
Well, we didn't talk about Mary Trump's book, and I think we can probably forego that.
Yeah, we can forego that.
Sour grapes.
We'll put that on the bonfire. I guess they're going to be burning books later anyway, so we'll try to slip that in. But not that we would do such a thing. No. But it's probably. It sounds like It sounds like another wolf. Who's some of the other people with the books are really piling up here, and they're pretty much forgotten about a week and a half later. So it won't be much.
Yeah, they're going to have trouble making this stuff last until the election. They really are.
And this book sounds like it might be. I haven't read it, but it sounds like it might be sour grapes after maybe an inheritance didn't go the way Anise might have hoped, and of course we've.
Yeah, it's a combination of sour grapes and just pure political partisanship, proving that you can actually be in a famous political family that didn't used to be political and be, such a staunch brainwashed Democrat that you can't even understand anybody even in your own family on the other side.
The politics of envy, right, right inside of a family. That would be my guess. And now I would like to share a few different news items that seem very significant that the team did not have the opportunity to discuss, but which we all consider to be important enough to be noteworthy. The first is a video by a YouTube channel called America Can We Talk? And this is a very professionally done interview. This is actually, I would not consider this alternative news. I would consider this more mainstream news. It is an article with Dr. Richard Bartlett in which he discusses COVID. And he has been treating his patients with a steroid with great success. He began doing this in March, and I think he's had a 100% recovery rate. So this is, again, from mainstream media, and a really good balance to some of what we hear from alternative media, that there are, and also what the president says, that there are very effective treatments that are not that expensive and are widely available. This particular steroid has been in use for many, many years, and as Dr. Bartlett said in the interview, it has been successfully used on babies as small preemie babies, as small as 2 pounds. So it's very safe. It's been used in the past to treat asthma, and as many doctors have said, COVID is more of people are killed more by their immune system than they are by the actual disease itself. So this steroid helps quiet the immune system and has been very, very effectively used by this doctor. So great interview and very important, very significant development. Another video I want to call attention to is a Sarah Westall video from a few days ago as I record this. Reservations used to build deep state, Crown, Rothschilds, and Wall Street with Susan Bradford. And so there are two videos. This is I'm showing the second. They both are strictly an interview. There are not any documents to go along with it or anything, but this lady, Susan Bradford, has very obviously done a tremendous amount of research and is very astute at exposing something that I honestly, until I listened to these videos, was not aware of, that resources had been funneled through Native American reservations into the pockets of the cabal, that when they build casinos, they get grants and they get financing pretty easily, and then the accounts have more than one name on them, and there's a name on them through which resources are siphoned off and don't actually go to the Native American community. So I can't really summarize it any more effectively than that. I heartily recommend, if you have any interest in Native Americans, if you have any interest in how the social engineers and the death cult have manipulated the financial system, you may want to spend a little bit of time listening to these two videos from Sarah Westall. And one of our favorite YouTubers, Amazing Polly, has just been hitting the ball out of the park lately. She came out with a new video over the weekend, Maxwell Epstein and the Control of Science Since World War II. And as I stated with the Sarah Westall videos, some of these ideas were new to me. there were puzzle pieces that Polly was able to put together that really it just makes a stunning picture of how these few people, have been able to dupe, defraud, rob, and as you know, the Bible says, kill, steal, and destroy. What Jesus said, the devil only comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and that's what these people have been doing. And people like Polly are helping us understand clearly that that is what has been done. And again, this video pertains to the world of science. And one thing that I was not aware of was that before World War II, science was pretty much the domain of people who were wealthy enough to spend a lot of time in the laboratory. And also science was somewhat like the arts, that scientists would have a patron. And at the time of World War II, it turned into much more profit-directed and vertically integrated, and with an agenda behind it. So this is one of the week's most significant videos that I've become aware of. And to go along with that was another idea that I became aware of that is related, which is the fact that, and this information is coming out with the Maxwell arrest, that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and many of these people, it wasn't just some random thing that they were doing. It was a long-term plan to compromise men and women who are leaders and blackmail them and be able to control them in order to gain control of technology and institutions. So I'll read a little from a couple of these tweets. QAnon worldwide. Ever wonder how the Chinese got so much tech so quickly? What if elite politicians were blackmailed with sex crimes, mostly with children? Epstein and Maxwell worked for Israel. The blackmail obtained by Epstein was used to barter. When you think about it, it's not that difficult to see or to imagine. And there's a bit more here in this thread. Secret technologies, who blackmailed the Clintons? What could you gain holding the POTUS hostage with blackmail? Everything done in this country in the last 30 years was to deliberately destroy America and build China. Our leaders did salacious things and were caught on video. Their hands were forced in signing bills to send our jobs overseas by blackmail because they went to the island. And now there are question marks here, but it's not a difficult leap. And there is some information that is somewhat more specific than that. But with Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, having been really a spy, and Polly gets into that in her video as well, it becomes clear that this whole blackmail network was very effective in accomplishing the goals of those who were controlling it. Here's another tweet. Deep post-Nazi intelligence roots of Maxwell's publishing empire, which aided via captured tech data the rise of Israel's now huge cybersecurity industry, and eventually to the Epstein-managed honey trap and blackmail panopticon. And there is a link to an article here. Robert Maxwell, Promise Gate, and the advent of the Israeli cybersecurity industry. And this article actually is from a little over a year ago. Very interesting information. It all takes on another dimension of believability as we learn more and more about Ghislaine Maxwell and her association with Jeffrey Epstein and so many others. And now I want to get into something that I learned about, I think it was on Friday, and quite honestly, I'm still somewhat stunned by this. And it has significance related to some of the other things that I've mentioned. And I'll get into that a little bit. But first, I want to give this the attention that is due it. The city of Seattle held a training session for white employees called Interrupting Internalized Racial Superiority and Whiteness. So I did a public records request to find out exactly what this means. Let's go through it together in this thread. And thanks to Christopher Rufo for really tremendous work here. First, diversity trainers informed white participants that objectivity, individualism, intellectualization, and comfort are all vestiges of internalized racial oppression. Sometimes both sides of the coin are oppression. Are white employees speaking too much? That's probably the internalized racial superiority of imposition or paternalism. And I don't think I'll read all of this. Some of it has just generally to do with, it just seems misguided and burdensome to the people who are the employees who are being subjected to this training. Now, just looking at it seems to me that telling someone not to be a perfectionist would tend to make them less effective in their job. So there's that whole aspect. But what I really want to point out, what I feel is really significant, is the list of qualities here that they associate with being white and associate with internalized racial superiority. Perfectionism, individualism, imposition, arrogance, paternalism, silence, intellectualization, control, violence, comfort, appropriation, cognitive dissonance, objectivity, anti-blackness. Many of those, I'm fine, no problem. Things like control and maybe to a certain extent paternalism. Although, if you had a great father, you kind of appreciate it when someone who possibly is older and wiser gives you a little bit of help or encouragement. But where I really want to go is a couple of these qualities. Perfectionism, that can be irritating. I get it if you work with somebody who's a perfectionist. But to me, as long as they're more demanding on himself or herself, I don't see how that's a problem. And as long as they're not such a perfectionist that they never get their work done. I have known people like that. So individualism, that's one of the characteristics that most patriots believe is at the core of maintaining freedom. So there are quite a few of these I'm quite concerned about. I'm concerned about objectivity being identified as racial superiority. But I think the main one here is intellectualization. And the reason is because we wouldn't have somebody, intellectualization, that's Dr. Bartlett. That's Sarah Westall and this researcher, Susan Bradford. That's amazing Polly, who's able to put together these remarkable connections between people and what they signify. So many people on Twitter who help us to identify how the social engineers, social controllers are trying to silence us and impose their will on us. And one of the things that can really prevent that from happening is intellectualization. All of the people whose videos and tweets I'm highlighting here have, if I may, intellectualized. They've applied rational thought to raw information and been able to make some determinations. That is the the process of logic. That is actually out of the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Those are some of the foundations of how people learn and communicate. So if intellectualization, which I'm identifying with the ability to rationally, logically process raw information, if we do away with that, the social engineers have nobody challenging them and asking them embarrassing questions. So honestly, what the city of Seattle has done, I find to be probably the most significant news event information to come out in this past week. And I think it's important that we, not just as white people, but as anybody who hopes to see culture and society built on reason. And that's the whole concept. That's what was being promoted in the Renaissance. If we leave that behind, we essentially leave behind civilization. So it's crucial to, and I don't know how or why the only reason I can think of that these qualities are used to identify racial superiority is the fact that these qualities, many of these qualities, are a threat to those who want to break down and reorganize society. Even comfort, if we, traumatized people do not have the ability to apply objectivity and reason through a problem. So, it's important. Comfort is important. Safety is important. It helps us to be centered. If we're not centered, that means we're off balance, and we will basically be whirling dervishes. And even though I'm an INFJ, I'm a feeler, I do not want to live my life as a whirling dervish. And there is one more significant bit of news that I wanted to mention. 9 of those 12 people who saw Anthony Weiner's laptop are now dead. And this is not a new article. This is from February 4th, 2020. And people have this phrase, 9 of 12 who saw the laptop are now dead. This has been circulating, and it's been questioned whether this is true or not. But this is Investment Watch is quite reputable, and there are some tweets from Michael Codre that back this up. So it seems that this is the truth. And I'm not even getting into the Wayfair, that probably enough has already been said about that. But with the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell, so many of these issues seem to be coalescing. And as Polly was able to put together so much of the information about the various people, and as it becomes clear that the blackmail was being imposed to, I want to use the word steel tech, so I will, to steel tech. All of these issues are related, and certainly not the least important is the very fact that having to do with the blackmail, that what the people who have allowed the tech to be sold out, they were being blackmailed because it worked, because they did not want Americans to know what they were doing in secret. And here it is, right, echoed again, how strongly they do not want Americans to know what has been going on. But we know, so we can all rejoice in that. and be responsible with the information that we have been given. In that light, we thank you for listening and watching. We hope that you have enjoyed this, and if we have, please share our work. Click like, subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on BitChute, follow us on Twitter, and retweet our articles and our tweets. Help us get the word out there. And if you have a moment, please visit our website. Again, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.